So, and she smiled and drove away. She goes, "Oh, Kabisco." I'm like, "Okay, bye." So hopefully she won't come back. And people are doing wedding pictures and stuff, so it's a little chaotic. If we had done this at 6, nobody would be here, and it's dark, especially if it's cloudy like this. So glad we did it at 7. Yeah. So what I am doing, okay, is I am recreating a demonstration that Brunelleschi performed in 1425, right here, almost. He was actually inside the portal of the Duomo. Obviously, we cannot do that. That was the one sad thing, was I wanted to get it, like literally do it from the exact spot, but this is close to the exact spot. What Brunelleschi was doing in this demonstration, and it was smaller than this, we do not have the original painting that he made for the demonstration. It was lost to history. There were maybe only a handful of people, probably fewer than you guys, who were here when he did it. But they were artists and intellectuals, and it was kind of, and it's a show. I mean, and that's what I'm doing. This is not something, you know, that would be, he was doing it to impress them. There was a sense of theater to it, and I'll explain how he made it theatrical and fun. But up until this point, people knew about geometry, and they knew about mapping, and they knew about cartography. But no one had really applied it to art. Everything it always was about map making, which is super important, you know, especially to the Florence economy. So like mapping, how to grow crops, how to lay out a city, like how to navigate the oceans. I mean, the whole map making part, Florence was a center of that. And what happened in 1400, 25 years before Brunelleschi did this demo, was they found, and this ties into everything we're doing here, Renaissance, rebirth, rediscovery of ancient Roman and Greek texts. So there was Ptolemy, the Roman optician, physicist, mathematician par excellence, 2nd century AD. They found his text, Optica, and it's all about how to create two-dimensional maps. They knew that the world was round back then, and they knew how, and Ptolemy developed this system for map making and creating two-dimensional surfaces that mimicked how you would see things that were actually three-dimensional. So it was about globes and about map making, and everybody in Florence just thought, you know, here's another ancient text, and they just thought it was the greatest thing ever. So Brunelleschi studies this, and all his friends do too. And the reason that it started to become applied to art was, there was a book by Roger Bacon in the 13th century, so well before these guys, and it was called, not Magnum Opus, the Magus Opus. And it is a philosophical treatise, and it's mostly religious, and what he postulates in this text is that in order for the Word of God to really have impact, you have to interpret it through, it's a term called exegesis. It has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, but it's exegesis. It's a Greek word. And it basically means you need to be able to profess the Gospels literally, morally, spiritually, and mystically. So there's these 4 categories, and that's exegesis. So when you do all those things, the Word of God is made manifest. But no one had ever done it literally, and so you think about all the work that was being done in the 12th and 13th centuries. And we talk about this when we were at the Uffizi. We start in that Giotto room in Duccio, and things are kind of flat, you know, and they're more about a concept of the scales off, you know, the Virgin's huge, and Christ and the people are small, space is flat, because they're not interested in it. It's supposed to be a mystical experience. It's not supposed to be of this earth. It's supposed to be in heaven. But what Bacon is saying is, like, you know, if you really want this to work, you have to be able to tell stories from the Bible in a way that people can see, relate to, and understand. Since a lot of them are illiterate, that wasn't his main motivation. But it was the idea of making literal, you know, the stories from the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament. So this is the philosophical underpinning of what Brunelleschi is doing. And so in the book, Bacon says all artists should be geometry guys. They should be mathematicians, because only by having these skills, as well as traditional painting skills, can you make the Word of God flesh. Can you make it a thing that actually instructs people, you know, on how to live and how to pray and how to worship the Lord, kind of thing. So Brunelleschi's all over this, and he reads this text and he thinks, you know, nobody's done this accurately yet before. Everybody tries. If you look at the Giotto frescoes, he gets it, but he doesn't understand mathematically how to make it accurate. He's like trying to figure it out, and he's got the vanishing point concept in, but he doesn't really know all the rules of perspective, which they still teach today, you know, in basic art and design classes, like how to draw 1, 2, 3-point perspective. It tortures my students terribly. And I always look at their homework, I'm like, how's your perspective homework going? And it's like a nightmare. It's like this aerial 3-point perspective of like a city. Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't even know how you guys do that. So I'm not pretending that I'm going to teach you how to do perspective. I'm just giving you a quick overview. Also, in reading more and more in this is actually a great book. Samuel Edgerton is one of the great scholars of this particular time in art history and this particular event in particular. And again, this is all by the only thing that exists is the text of one of the witnesses who says, and then Brunelleschi did all this. And it's pretty accurate, like the description. But the more research I did, the more I realized now scholars fight over how did he do it? Like, was it a mirror? Was it burnished metal that acted like a mirror? Was there a mirror and was there a painting next to it? Like, no one really knows because there's no evidence. And so all we have to go by is this one text, which is pretty good, but it's incomplete. So I'm kind of this is guerrilla style. I'm making this up because we have a limited amount of time. But this is basically the idea, is he would set up a mirror or a burnished piece of metal. We think it was a highly polished piece of metal because lead-backed mirrors back then were outrageously expensive and very rare. So nobody would use it for something like this. Plus you can incise, where did my little guy go? You can incise on these, which I brought my little incisor tool. You can incise on metal. Now, what we think happened was Brunelleschi, he picked the baptistry for a couple of reasons. One, this is his hood, like he lived around here. And there was a period of time where he was the signora of the baptistry district. And so part of what he was doing was practical. He was promoting his neighborhood, like Florence was broken into different areas. And also he knew that the baptistry has some unique properties that make it really easy to do a great job with perspective. First, it is the same height as it is wide. And the distance from the door, the Gates of Paradise door, to where he was standing is the same also. So it's 1 to 1 to 1. So it's a really simple thing for him to prep. So we think he knew the perspective rules and did basic drawings initially. And he was an architect, so he knew how to do, like, you know, architectural renderings. But the simplicity of the geometry helped. The location, because he was trying to, like, promote his neighborhood, helped. And this, of course, is the center of everything, you know, in 1425, and you knew he would find a receptive audience. So the idea is, he's trying to show, he could just do a perspective drawing and say, look at this. But he wanted it to be theatrical and say, this will trick your eye. And we were talking about this the other day with HDTV. Like when HDTV first came out, people were like, wow, it's so amazing. And now you just take it for granted. And it's the same thing, we look at a perspective drawing, it's like, yeah, so. But then he wanted to create a sense of theater. So he probably prepped the drawings, and then would look in the mirror, as I'm about to, through a fixed point. And it's a little tricky because your reflection is in the mirror, so you have to like move around. I did this back at my studio in LA to make sure it would work. And then he would incise it. He probably didn't do a full drawing. He just marked the points of intersection. And also, it's a great building because it has all these rectangular detail elements. So you bust out a ruler or your proportional divider, and you can just draw all this stuff later. But what he wanted to show us, I'm looking at this building, and I'm drawing the reflection. I'm drawing what I see directly. Like, I'm not like making mistakes. I'm tracing it from a mirror onto this. And then what he did was he finally painted it. And then he had another mirror, and what he would have you do, and he drilled a hole in the center of the drawing, and he went home and painted it. And apparently he was a really great painter. The guy who wrote the description said, you know, Signor Brunelleschi is such an amazing painter that it looked real. Yeah. So he's looking. What he does is you have to take it's a mirror reflection, the painting of what you're looking at. There's a hole in it. And so what he does is you put the painting up like this, and the painting is here, and there's a hole in the middle of it, and you hold up another mirror in front of you like that. And so this is the theater part. So it's like, look at my painting. And you look at the painting, and he goes, now take, and you see the reflection. You're looking through the hole, you see the reflection of the painting in the mirror. Now take the mirror away. And you take the mirror away, and it's the exact same thing. And people are like, wow! Okay, so again, to us, it's like, is that such a big deal? Back then, it was like magic. And Brunelleschi had a sense of, this has to be an occasion. This has to be theatrical. And then he doesn't really do anything with it. He's like, you guys are the painters, like, knock yourselves out. I got a dome to build. You know, it's like, I got stuff to do. But he's like, this is a way for you guys to pursue it. And from then on, like, it all starts right here. So that's 1425, and then just right after that, if you guys are lucky enough to see the Masaccio Trinity at Santa Maria Novella, that basically is like the first known perspective painting. It's a fresco that is specifically designed to be seen from a specific point. You're supposed to stand in front of it, and your eyesight, your sight line goes straight to the vanishing point, and all the figures, Christ, the other attending priests, and all the architecture are based on that perspective. If you go stand over there, it doesn't work. But then it was so magical that people would come to Santa Maria Novella and just be like, oh, you know, I mean, it was like looking through space to them. To us, it's just a really great painting, but for them, it really was like a transcendent experience. And eventually, this goes on to encompass, you know, much more complex perspectives and things like that. But the point being is, it all started here in Florence, and not just here in Florence. It started like right here. Like right here, not over there, like, you know, not over there. It's like, actually it's right there, but we can't get in. So like, this is where it happened. This was 600 years ago almost, and it happened right here. And everything you have ever seen that looks like it could be real, from paintings to photography to film to video games, this is where it all starts, with this dumb little demonstration. I mean, it's kind of cheesy. And and I've got to do it really fast. In reality, he probably did all the prep on his own. Then he invites his friends, and he's like, "Look what I did!" And they said he probably gave a lecture about optics before the thing, which that's what I'm doing. Mine's more a history lecture. He's talking about what he found from Ptolemy's optics. And frankly, in reading through this, one of the things that Sam and I talk about all the time is, it's like, you study a lot. It's not just about making paintings and making drawings. You study a lot of art history, you study a lot of theory, you study a lot of like mathematics and things. I am not a scholar. And once I read this and went online and started doing more research, I'm like, that you could make a career of this. Like, you could write a PhD thesis about this thing, and like, you know, and that would be your whole life, would be just talking about Brunelleschi's experiment. So I'm like, I'm not a scholar, I'm an artist, I'm going to show the students how it was done. I'm not doing it 100% right, but you get the general. And again, it's like, you know, Brunelleschi had all the time in the world. It's like, because the Renaissance. It's like, you know, like, we have stuff that we got to go somewhere. We got to get in a cab. Like, he would not even understand what that was. If he was like, I do not know what this is. Like, no horses, like, you know. So, like, we have to move on and do it quickly. I wish we could stay longer, but again, because not the Renaissance. This is now, like, we have stuff to do. So basically what he would do is he would set up this, and I'll let you guys do this too with another mirror. I'm going to use the incisor thing. But if you guys want to play with it, I can use either this mirror or the other one. And you can, this would thank you, Andre Yee, her husband. He goes, I go, I wish the kids could do this, like, because I get to have all the fun. And he goes, well, why don't you just take a whiteboard marker and like have them draw on the mirror? And I'm like, thanks, Andre, like, you're a genius. And so if you guys want to try it, I have the whiteboard marker, I have the other mirror, and we can do that really quick, but we do need to get out of here.
They share a studio.
Yeah, we share a studio downtown together. So basically you need a fixed perspective, and I don't want to go into the whole privileged perspective thing, because that's a whole art theory lecture on its own. And basically, you're looking, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm looking at the baptistry. And this is a little, no offense, Ref, it's a little rickety. You know, he probably had, you know, assistants bring some big thing in. But basically, he's just looking in here, and this is something I have to do, because I have to like hold things to keep them stable. But like, you basically try to keep your perspective in this little eye frame, and I'm just gonna trace like that first pillar. And again, he probably just marked the intersection points, but I'm gonna, you know, quickly, and you can, I know it's hard to see, but I'm actually incising. This is an acrylic mirror. And so frankly, it's easy for me to see what I'm doing. It also enables me to, okay, so I'm drawing the first pillar over this shoulder that has the horizontal stripes on it. My shoulder is here, so now I have to move. And I just keep the incising I've done steady, and now I'm out of the way and I can do the rest of that. So you have to keep moving around because yes, that's one of the things, is that you have to figure out a way to do this where you are not in the image. And Rachel wrecked everything because she's standing in. No, but that's the thing. Yeah, and I imagine back then it was a lot easier to do this because tourists didn't come to Florence, just business people and the Medici and all those crazy guys. So I'll stop right there. So now you can see, and it's a little skewed, it's at a weird little angle. There's some warpage that occurs. His was probably more stable, but so you're able to see, like, that's just and I honestly, I did that really fast. Like, if you do it slow, you could do it better, but that is basically that little tower guy right there, or that's that part of it. And again, he wouldn't go in and incise or draw all the little patterns. It's like he knows what it looks like. He probably had dozens of drawings of the front, and he could add those later. But the point was not, the details help but don't matter. What really matters is you are looking at, like, what it's like. It's not just math, and it's not a math. It like looks like the real thing. It's trompe l'oeil. It tricks the eye. And this is the first time anyone's figured out how to do it mathematically, scientifically, repeatedly. Like, you can do this to anything. And if you guys ever are fortunate or unfortunate enough to take a perspective class, because they're brutally difficult. I mean, you could easily, like, if you know what you do, you could, from any point of view, you could draw this entire piazza, and it would look like the real thing, and you wouldn't even need to be there. Like, you would just figure out mathematically what it would be. But again, the whole point of Brunelleschi is, it's like, I know this works. Let me show you how it makes it look like something real, and isn't that awesome? You know, and so it's a real shame that the original paintings do not exist at all. That would just be like, that would be almost as good as, but not quite. Anyway, so that's what you do. I had to mount this on a board, which Ref was kind enough to do for me, because this is plastic, and I needed to get something on a plane that wasn't going to break. That didn't weigh a ton, and it's a little flexible, and the way I draw is I lean in with my hand, and I press down kind of hard, and there's some flex to this, so I had Ref mount this on a board. A sturdier easel would help to keep it from moving around, and you just have to be really, really patient. But, you know, and again, we're doing this really quick, but how long did that take? A couple minutes? You know, I mean, I could basically do the front of the baptistry probably in a, you know, hour or two, or at least the key elements, then go back in and do the detail later. And if he really was as good a painter as the eyewitness said he was, he would have been able to do a convincing job with the color as well and the lighting, and a trompe l'oeil thing that would have tricked all his friends, and they would be like, wow, that's so cool, like, I'm gonna go do that. So it was, the analogy would be, it's Brunelleschi and a group probably smaller than this, but of very influential people. And the two examples that are a little more contemporary are, when the Velvet Underground came out, like, no one bought the record. It sold, like, you know, 12 copies. But everybody who bought it started a band. Because they're like, I can do that. And the Sex Pistols were the same thing. They did a concert in Manchester. There were 20 people there. Everybody that was at that show formed a band, like Joe Strummer, like the guys from the Buzzcocks, like everybody that was there started it. So Brunelleschi does his little show. He doesn't do anything. He's like, I got to get back to work on my architecture. That's what's paying the bills. And all his artist friends disseminate this knowledge far and wide, and it's never stopped. So that's kind of it. Like I said, I'm kind of skipping some things just for the nature of time and the fact that it's scholarly debatable. You know, it's like, I'm not sure, and no one is, exactly how he did it, because there is no evidence. All we have is this one, like, handwritten account that was written day of 1425. So if you guys wanted, so you can see, like, basically you do spend a lot of time. You need to have the fixed point, otherwise there's no way you could do it like if you went away and had a sandwich and came back. You know, it's like, but you have to, you know, be patient, do the whole thing. And in the mirror, the guy who wrote this book wrote it a while ago. So he did it here with a camera, and set it up in front of the baptistry. And so you can, and this was probably in the 50s, I think, or the 60s. So you didn't have this crazy tourism insanity like we do now. So he set his thing up. He actually was able to put his camera, I think it's a picture of him even, inside the doorway. That's a little graphic. So it's like, was there a mirror and there was a drawing? Like, did he have a preparatory thing? Like, no one's really sure. But again, for our purposes, it's simply, and that's the view. So you can see it's inside the door. And here's the photographer doing it with his easel, but he did it with a camera, because the guy's not. And there he is, inside the doorway. So nice big easel. He's got a camera. There's nobody there. Those were the days. And I think there's another good diagram that actually shows like where the steps are. Yeah, here we go. At the corner, right? So that's it. Wait, so we're at baptistry door. So here you can see, and here's the steps. Now he's here. We're significantly closer, and that's why the baptistry more than fills the mirror. I can't get the whole thing the way the author did, or the way Brunelleschi did, just because of that position. I need to be another, whatever that is, 30, 40, 50 feet inside the doorway in order for it to look like Brunelleschi's. But you can see, so we're a little bit off. But if he had done it, he figured out what all the sight lines were and what would fit, and how it would all work. And again, part of it was promotion of the city, promotion of himself, and he was just being like friendly and showing off for his fellow artists. But he genuinely wanted them to know, it's like, hey, if you guys do this, like, we can make some paintings that are going to knock some people out. And they're not as much concerned with knocking everybody out and then I'll be in the Whitney biannual. They're like knocking everybody out because that's, I think we've all gotten a sense of that now that we're coming to a close. This city is steeped in religious history and philosophy, and it was really important. It's like, now we can get the word of God. It's very evangelical, right? It's like, now we can get the word of God out, and it'll look like Jesus coming off the cross. It'll look like you're there. It'll look like Mary, the flight into Egypt. It'll look just like it. Like, we can use this perspective and make it real. So we're filling that in that empty part of teaching of God by making it look real. And so that's why also a lot of the images will have contemporary clothing. It's like they want the people seeing it to think like, yeah, this happened a while ago, but this is it's now. Like, the world of God is the world of now kind of thing. And so it was very important to them, to be able to achieve that, and anything that would help them with that goal was a-okay. Of course, there's, paint and mixing and all the other color and compositional things that Sam and I talked to you about. And when you see like where it really takes off is with the Masaccio frescoes at the Brancacci Chapel, where all of a sudden he's using perspective and to create an environment, and then he puts characters in that environment in an accurate way to create space. But without the beautiful composition and the interaction of the characters and their gestures and their positions and the lighting, it doesn't work. I mean, it's one thing just to say, oh, it looks like 3 dimensions, so what? But it looks like 3 dimensions of Christ giving the Sermon on the Mount or being baptized by St. John. I mean, it's like you're using it to tell a really important story and make it look real. So that's what he's trying to do. What time is it?
7, a little after that, 7:30.
Okay.
Are you gonna look
yeah.
through? Are you gonna
Yeah.
look
So
into it?
okay. So if anybody, okay, you guys at this point, I'm like, God, did I do that fast?
Yeah, let them look through. Let them
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah. You guys try it, and you can use. And they also. What I loved was this terrible little cartoon that's in here. Oh, here we go. So that's how he did it. So it's like the painting, and you're looking through it, and you hold the mirror up, and then it's like magic. You take the mirror. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and
It's like those 3D magic eyes where you go
It's like rock,
and you're like, oh my God, there's a tiger.
Yeah, it's like Rocky and Bullwinkle, like nothing up my sleeve, presto, And then it's like a magic trick almost, but it's not magic. It's real, and it's mathematical, and it's like, you guys, this isn't a trick. Like, you can do this. All you need to know is Ptolemy's optics, which we got from the Romans. Thank you, Renaissance, because Renaissance, like we're able to use these ancient texts that we didn't know existed to help us create art, to help us create economies, to help us navigate the oceans, to help us, and all this stuff ended up being part, a century later, what Galileo was up to, like trying to work with maps, clocks, astronomy, how to navigate the oceans, how to use time when you have no fixed reference point at sea. You know, so the Navy, like being able to ship goods around the world, you know, keeps the Medici happy. You know, like, so it all, but again, it all starts here as far as artistically. People were drawing maps and stuff and building buildings like Brunelleschi did as an architect, but this is where it starts for art. It's right here. So if you want to, you can either, feel free. This is, I just brought a rag. If you want to do it with the whiteboard marker, just, you know, like I'll show you, and frankly it's a lot faster. And you don't have to press down, so. I'll do the other side with the whiteboard marker. But you can just see, it's like, okay, how would I do that?
We still teach this, I mean, we don't teach this demo, but you guys, the system of two-point perspective that we teach you in school is exactly the same as what we want to talk about.
So, that is that. That's the circular cylindrical column, just real quick. So you can see, it's like you just look at it and you just trace it, you know, and that's it. And then, you know, if you're done, then you can just wipe it off with the rag.
So cool with the next person.
Thank you, Andre. Because, no, really, because it's the incising thing is very slow and very meticulous. And so if you want to try that and just have a sense of how it feels, this is the tool. So I will put, how should I put it?
Elijah wants to try?
So there's the tool, there's the rag. Oh wait, and this should, oh no, that's
There, you're going to do it.
Yeah,
Elijah's
and
going to
then,
do it. The trucks are coming, Cole. I'm moving it along.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. No, yeah. At 8 o'clock.
like, they gotta do
yeah,
it.
at 8 o'clock, this place goes straight to hell. It just, it turns.
Put that on YouTube.
No, I was really worried
It's
about
already
Can you put it on a
started.
summer arts YouTube?
Sure. Yeah.
I think you've had enough.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
It's like cleaning teeth, though.
Yeah, it is. Actually, that's exact. Actually, if you were going to do this, that I bought that like at Blick. But if you're doing this kind of etching work, and have you ever done printmaking, like in Taglio and stuff? You use, like, frequently you use real dental tools because they're stainless steel, they're totally precise, and they never get dull. And they're expensive, but they work really well. So, anyway, did you draw on my drawing on top of what I drew?
No.
But anybody, if you guys want to try it, go for it. I know. I'm sorry, Kim. It's like
I just want to look in there.
I want to try.
I want to look. Except I'm not that tall. Oh, so that would be really important to be exact.
Come on, you only get one chance. You're in Florence now.
In a perfect world,
Jeez.
where he lives here, and he's Filippo Brunelleschi.
I'm tall.
He can do what he wants. He's a powerful guy, so he can stay here all day and have access to really high quality stuff and work slowly. But you do have to be fixed. Like you have to be like if you really hire. And again, he can do it like just by using perspective with a ruler and triangles and draw it that way. But the whole point is he wants to show that there's a correlation between that abstract mathematical thought and that the way we see is mathematical. It's not just a concept that we use to build things. It actually is how we see. So, but yeah, you're right. That's super
Sam, I see you.
Oh, I'm moving. Don't draw me. Oh my god.
Oh, you can't get her.
Exactly. Ultimate. Oh my god, that is so great. That's a great picture.
Every time.
Well, and don't be shy.
Come on.
I'm sorry. It's
Go,
so tall.
go.
I don't mind.
I'm just going to use this.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Very iconic. Cole, how do you decide how far to put the sign? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like this bar that you have?
I test. Okay, good question. And there's a little background. When we were at early on, it seems like a year ago when we started this thing. Remember we went to the opera? Did she break it?
You ruined it, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca. That's what you get for letting collage people.
Oh my god. 1B, 1C.
Yeah, 1B, 1C. Hang on, let me fix this. So they, if you remember, or maybe you guys didn't make it upstairs at the Opera del Duomo, they have measuring sticks. Now they didn't have meters then. And what they used was, like the ancient Egyptians who used cubits, you know, which is this distance to have a, basically measurement came from an extension of the human body. And in Italy it was called the braccio, and it was basically the same kind of relationship. So when you would give measurements, they were in, it was like half a braccio, a full braccio, or 2 braccios. And if you go upstairs at the Opera del Duomo, they have these huge measuring sticks that are laid out in braccios and increments of them. So it's not feet, it's not meters, that was what they used. And so he had this whole thing, I read it, he had the whole thing figured out. It was supposed to be about 2 feet, like this would be, the distance would be roughly like 2 feet. And I tried it at home that way, and I couldn't do it because I was like, it would mean I was looking at it and I was too far away. And the way I draw, I can't do it, like, comfortably. And so for demo purposes, this is not, I want to stress that, this is strictly for demonstration purposes. It is not accurate. When Brunelleschi did it, if you read that book, it is ridiculous the detail he went into, like where to position the thing, how to measure it, like how far he had to be away, what the angles that he was using, how long the eyepiece needed to be. Like I'm literally taping something to an easel that Ref was kind enough to bring, but really it was probably like I would actually want it in the middle. You would want the eyepiece in the center. But there's no way to do that and keep it stable for a demo. Brunelleschi could have done that. He could have taken a couple of days, you know, and prepped the whole thing and had it be perfect. So yeah, the perfection, and Rachel brought this up too, the perfection of it is really important because the Renaissance. And so they wanted everything to be, you know, mathematically accurate, totally great. When I tried it myself, it just was too hard. And so I'm like, what's about a foot long? And I'm in the studio with you guys, are going, okay, that'll do. And then I just cut a little hole in a bottle cap, you know, just to make a little circular, you know, eyepiece. So it's real, it's very, they're bad. It's very guerrilla style. Like it's just like, or it's very MacGyver. It's like super MacGyver. Like it's like I just take what I get. I need to do this thing. How do I make it happen? And like really fast to save the world. So it's a little inaccurate. But that's basic. The premise is the same. Like the premise of how to use the reflection and how to incise the reflection is the same idea. It's just we're doing it just a real, you know, quick version.
It's exactly the route.
But yeah, but that's a good. He measured everything, and when you read the notes, it's just. I mean, frankly, it's like really dry.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's got to be 2 braccios, and you have to do it this, and it has to be at an angle, like probably, like I would have it maybe a little higher, have the centerpiece in the middle. Yeah, and it's why are they this big? Because it'll fit in my luggage. No, I mean, you know, there are reasons for all of these things, and they're not the reasons that you want for a perfectly accurate rendering, but they're great for a demo.
I have another question.
Sure.
I don't think I understand how the image is transferred to the painting after this happens.
It is the painting.
Paint on the glass.
Actually, and that's the thing is that it's
or
not,
metal or whatever it was.
They don't think it was a mirror. They think it was metal.
Yeah.
That like maybe lead. Who knows? But it was some sort of metal that was polished so that it wasn't as perfect as a lead mirror, but it was good enough that you could see the reflection, you know, and incise it pretty accurately. So they think that's what it was that it was metal. So no, that's a great question. It wasn't, and that's part of the argument is, was there a separate painting that was from the thing? Did he maybe do a rubbing of the incising or make a print, like if you guys have done intaglio printing, you could just roll ink on this and roll a piece of paper over it and you would get a mirror image. It would look just like the thing. But they don't know. There's no evidence, so no one really knows.
What was the scene with the dude with the book and then the other thing and the...
Because what you're looking at is that this would be eventually a painting with a hole in the middle. And so you're holding it up, the painting, you're holding the back of the painting up like this. So the painting is facing the Baptist church. And then you hold up. So you're looking through.
Oh, to like compare?
You're like here's this, like, and it's painted, it's all done. There's a hole in the middle, and it's like, okay, and you're supposed to take another, like, look through it this way while you're holding another mirror like that. So the first thing you see, like I'm looking, I see the Duomo doorway. Yeah, and what would happen was you would be looking at it, and the thing is, because it's a mirror, when I look at the drawing, it flips it again. So it looks like I'm looking at the Duomo door backwards. But if I had the painting in front of me, the painting would be in the mirror and it would look frontal. It would look exactly the way it really looks. And you're supposed to hold it, it's like a whole, just the right distance, to braccio, like that. He had it all figured out, and you're looking at it like this. You're looking at the painting, and then you go, whoop, and then instead I would be looking at this, and you'd be like, oh my God, it looks just like the door. Like it's a perfect, it's not, it doesn't look like a really good painting to their eyes. It doesn't look like a really good painting of the door. It looks like the door. It's like it's the first time no one's ever had a trompe l'oeil experience before. It happens here, and they're like, "Oh my God!" Like I can make paintings too that look just like the real thing. I'm set, you know. And then all his friends run away and go do it themselves. But no, excellent question, thank you. But that's what the whole thing was, and that's why I couldn't do it, because I would need to drill a hole. It was problematic technically to do all that in advance of this trip. So I figured I'd just kind of run you through it fast. And even that's there's a whole thing about how they did the hole. Okay, it wasn't just a drilled hole. It had to go this way, you know, so that you didn't see the rim. Like it had to be at a certain. It's Renaissance. These guys are nuts. Like everything has to be like perfect. Like Rachel was saying, like if the hole isn't right, it doesn't work. If it's not right in the center, it doesn't work. If you hold the thing too far away, so there's a lot of planning involved. So like a magic trick, like it looks effortless, and that's Brunelleschi's like. Piece of cake. You guys can check it out. They're like, wow, that's great. It's like, yeah, right? Easy. It's not. It requires a lot of preparation, but the result is like that. And he started Filippo Brunelleschi. So, yay! Thanks, guys. Thank you all for. Yeah, and thank you everybody for coming out. I know it's really early and we're like in the home stretch, and it's rough, and everyone's tired. So I really appreciate you guys getting.
Yeah, I wouldn't miss it.
So can I take that last picture by Cole?
Yeah.
Cole there, and let me take
Get in the back. Let me stash my cameras in the back somewhere. Here, I'm gonna get that. Yeah. I'm just gonna do it. Sorry.